So I've been having a lot of fun with Resident Evil Requiem, but I won't be the first to admit that it's not perfect. And in this video, I wanted to go over some of my personal favorite parts of the game that I think are the strongest, and also the sections that I think are a little weaker and are a bit of a drag to play, especially after you've already beaten the game and you're replaying it. I enjoyed playing through the care center. The enemy types are some of the most personal zombie archetypes that we've seen from the series. Even such a small addition like the zombies keeping their personality traits from when they were a human personalize the zombies so much and make each and every one of them a lot more memorable. The puzzles aren't too difficult and there is some backtracking, but you don't have to do too much of it. There's plenty of unlockables as well as some secret rewards like getting the pantry key from killing the chef or the charm you get for killing the chunk. I think the introductions to the zombies and the monsters are really cool too, particularly the chunk because he just comes out of nowhere. The section doesn't last too long either. The first time you're playing through it, you're going to be going back and getting the unlockables and looting all the places, so it's going to inevitably take you longer to complete. But replaying it, say when you have infinite ammo or you're going for a speed run, I feel like getting all of the key items and the 3 quartz cubes doesn't take that long. Needing to carry Emily to the final puzzle box is an interesting switch up and it forces you to strategize. Like, do you clear all the zombies out of the way before taking her over, or do you go for a more stealthy approach and risk getting attacked with no form of defense? I thought that was a cool addition. The part where you need to defend Emily as she's solving the puzzle box, I feel can kind of drag out, but mainly because the zombies take like forever to spawn, at least when I was playing it. I think you have to go out of the room to spawn them in the general area, but I was just camping at the door for the most part, and I feel like it took a while for the zombies to spawn. So it's not perfect, but I think there's a lot of character and the environments are really cool, so I thought it was a really strong part of the game. The very first time I played the basement section, I thought it was really interesting. I wasn't expecting that we were going to get to go under the care center, and I thought the system with the joint plugs was interesting, you know, having to choose which areas you want to turn on, but needing to do this every time definitely gets old pretty fast. Once you figure out the fastest path to getting the area turned on, it's not that bad, but it still just feels like a bit of a drag in my opinion. There's some zombies you have to kill, and sometimes you have to hide from the girl, but other than that, there isn't really a lot to keep you engaged with this section. And I do mainly just mean the first part to the basement, because I thought the meat processing part was really fun. It reminded me of that section in Resident Evil 5 with the conveyor belt, and I thought it was fun right at the end when you grab Emily and you just have to book it to the elevator. But especially considering the part where you have to run to the elevator as well as the meat processing, the fact that they are so much more engaging than the first half of this part, it emphasizes how much of a drag it can be to do. So yeah, that's why I think it's one of the weaker sections. A part that I really enjoyed, though I can understand how it's not the most original, is right after the helicopter key section where you're protecting Grace as Leon. I think this part is especially fun because you go from the basement section and getting the helicopter key, which there's like basically no combat during those sections, and the flames from the helicopter crash make it an interesting setting to look at. I just thought it was generally pretty fun, and I think it has a strong finish with the Blisterborn fight in the burning church. The Blisterborn isn't the most original mini boss, and I call him a mini boss because he comes back later in Raccoon City. He reminds me of that like screaming baby guy in Resident Evil 6 with the gas, but I mean, as basic and as unoriginal as this section is, I still thought it was pretty fun and a strong way to close out the care center area of the game. And here's the big stinker that most people would agree is the weakest part of this game. It's where you're playing as the little girl Chloe and you're hiding from the other evil little girls. There's a couple of reasons why this part is a drag to have to get through. For one, you don't do anything. You're just running around and hiding. I haven't played Resident Evil 2 Remake in a while, but it seems similar to that part where you play as Sherry. But at least in that, you're playing as a legacy character. Here you're just playing as one of the, 40 clones of Grace. I don't mean any offense, but I personally don't want to play as a little girl, at least not in a Resident Evil game, trying to play as Leon and kill some zombies. While she is a little girl, her voice just doesn't sound natural to me. It sounds more like an impression of a little girl.
Hey! What are you doing?
Which I guess they just couldn't get an actual like child to say the lines, but whatever. The hiding sections take forever. Very first time playing through it, you're like, whatever, I don't know what's gonna happen, so I'll be patient. But having to do it again, you're like, please just let me get through this. You also run like you're in quicksand, which is pretty bad with Grace, but it's just worse here. And there are some easy skips, like running to the hatch right as you get the key, because if you're quick enough, the little girl won't see you, but you still have to get through the whole sequence. And hiding under the bed and the table takes the same amount of time regardless. This entire segment could have just been a cutscene. I don't even really know what the point of it is. It provides a little bit of cool lore when you go into the underground Umbrella laboratory with the picture of Spencer and all the little clones, but they could have easily just put that in the final section of the game where you're in a giant underground Umbrella facility. It just feels really padded out. Overall, this section is really weak, but I guess every Resident Evil game has to have one, so. Okay, let's talk about another good part now. While it's not very Resident Evil at all, and honestly more akin to like Umbrella Corps or Call of Duty or any other kind of action shooter, even like John Wick, I thought the section where the elite guards are hunting you was really cool. I can't think of another time where Leon has had to go up against human soldiers. I don't really count the Ganados or the Joavo in Resident Evil 6. So that in itself was pretty cool to see Leon go up against other agents like himself. It's a nice contrast because you go from the destroyed, abandoned Raccoon City with everything falling apart and everything's dirty to this pristine white Umbrella facility. It's a pretty classic route for Resident Evil because they did a similar thing in Resident Evil 2, but this contrast is also emphasized by the enemies that you're fighting being the elite soldiers, because you go from the basically ancient looking zombies and the plants to fighting these modern USS soldiers. It also forces you to play with a little more strategy than the other segments where you play as Leon, because up until this point you can pretty much just rush every enemy and get through it, but with the elite guards, especially on the higher difficulties, if you're not careful you'll get killed like instantly. So it gives you things to strategize with, like these smoke canisters, and having a diverse weapon selection helps here too, depending on how you want to approach the combat. And I personally am just more of a fan of the action-oriented games in the series. Fighting the commander or hunk, whatever you want to call him, is a very out-of-nowhere boss battle that I personally wasn't expecting. So while it's not very Resident Evil at all, I think it makes sense in the context of the story, and it's just a fun, engaging part to play through. And so I have a couple mixed bag sections that I want to talk about as well. The first one being the part where you have to get the helicopter key and you go in Victor's underground laboratory. I think visually and story-wise, this is a really strong section just to see everything that's going on behind the scenes. But that's basically the only purpose it serves, because all you do in this section is just run. There's no enemies that you need to kill. You can when you need to evacuate the facility, but you can just easily run past them and it doesn't really matter. I enjoyed playing through this the first time because all the blood and everything, it had to have been inspired by Evil Dead to some extent. But after you play it once, its effect pretty much wears off, and the fact that you have to do it every time kind of makes it a bit of a drag. But I say it's a mixed bag because there are some cool story elements here. Having to run through all the zombies in itself is a very classic Resident Evil thing, so I can't hate on it too much. I just think it's very style over substance. And another mixed bag section, in my opinion, is the first part of Raccoon City. First time playing this, you're like, wow, we're back in Raccoon City. It's time to kill some OG zombies and see all these very nostalgic places. So you don't mind having to walk these long distances and go through these sections that are just generally longer. And when I talk about the first part of Raccoon City, I'm mainly just talking about after the spider fight, when you have to collect the detonator parts. Because before that, the spider fight is a really strong introduction. It's just after that, I feel like when you have to go around to each of the buildings and collect each of the parts, after you do it a couple times, it can start to feel like a drag. But I can't hate on this section because, I mean, you're back in Raccoon City killing zombies. I mean, when was the last time you even got to do that? And like, I totally get why Raccoon City looks the way it does, and for what it's worth, it looks great, but walking around with the exact same dull color palette can get pretty boring to look at. There's some interesting design stuff, especially with the collapsed building you have to go through, but sometimes it can feel a bit padded out just for the sake of being like, hey, look how cool this thing is. It does complement the action gameplay very well though, with some fun parts like shooting the mortars and the glass floor section. Going back to the RPD is super nostalgic, but you really don't do much except walk around like, whoa, I remember this, which is totally fine, and it's a lot of fun on the first playthrough. But after you do it once, it largely loses its effect. The cop zombies making a return are cool, but you only get to kill like a couple of them. You also have the Mr. X chase, which is fun and nostalgic, but it only lasts about 2 minutes. So yeah, the first time you play it, it's super fun and nostalgic, just being back in the RPD. You don't know what's gonna happen, but then when you play it and you know what's gonna happen, it's kind of like the second time watching Spider-Man No Way Home. You know what's coming, and the novelty of it inevitably wears off. I know I'm kind of hating on this section right now, and I like it a lot. I just think from a gameplay perspective, it's similar to the part where you have to get the helicopter key, where it's just style over substance. But at least there's a lot of nostalgia here, so it's easier to get through. So yeah, there's good things and bad things with Raccoon City, so that's why I'd consider it a mixed bag. So yeah, those are the best and worst parts of Resident Evil Requiem in my opinion. If you want to see more content similar to this, I'll put a video here. And yeah, thanks for watching.